Thank you so much, President Drake, trustees, members of the faculty, students, friends, and of course, most importantly, members of the graduating class of 2019. Thanks for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me to be here today to share this moment with you. I have to confess, I have given my share of commencement addresses. I do not usually have stage fright, but this is pressure. 70,000 people in the audience, and perhaps most importantly, the knowledge that for the 10,000 students, I am all that stands between you and your degree. That is pressure. Look, I'm really honored to be speaking at this school with the best damn band in the land. Given your 7-year streak against that team up north and that state up north, shall we officially call it the best damn football team in the land? So at this point, my chances of being asked to speak at the Michigan Commencement have plummeted to zero. I think they will start scratching an X over the Z in Zakaria. But whatever, I have plans to spend next May with my family anyway. I'm genuinely honored to speak at The Ohio State University. I've been here 3 years before, as President Drake mentioned, to speak at the centennial of the Fisher College of Business, and was tremendously impressed by everything and everyone I saw. I think that to me the magic of OSU is the size and the scale, and the central role it has been able to play always in really being the escalator of social mobility in the United States. More than almost any place I can think of, this university takes people from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, and moves them up. And in this sense, OSU and places like it are the crucial ladders of opportunity that make the American dream work. You, the graduates of 2019, will soon begin your journey fulfilling your American dream. If you live in another country, it's some version of it. But you will have been well prepared nonetheless, both with knowledge and skills, but also values and attitude. You know, later in life, Wilbur Wright of the Wright brothers reflected on his formula for success. And he had two pieces of advice. Pick out a good father and mother, precaution, and begin life in Ohio. So, no matter where you came from, no matter what you think of your parents, you have already met one of his crucial criteria. You have begun your adult life in Ohio. Now, we don't know where you will end up. Some of you will stay here. Columbus is a thriving, dynamic place, one of the really dynamic centers of opportunity in America. But many of you will move, and you will end up in one of America's other large metro areas. Now, I'm not saying this as some kind of a fortune teller. It is what the data tells us. Over the last decade, Mark Bureau of Brookings calculated the 53 largest metro areas in the United States have accounted for 71% of the country's population growth, 2/3 of its employment growth, and a staggering 3/4 of its economic growth. In fact, half of America's job growth in the last decade took place in just 20 cities. Smaller towns and rural communities, by contrast, are losing people and contributing barely to economic growth. The Congressional Joint Committee on Economics issued a report describing this pattern. Educated young people moving to major metro areas, leaving behind small cities, towns, and rural regions. That brain drain then, of course, slows growth in those left behind areas, which causes the next wave of young people to leave, which then slows growth again. It is a classic spiral. Up for the cities, down for the others. Now, once you move to these metro areas, you are likely to cluster with people who are like you, educated, cosmopolitan, diverse. This is natural, it's part of human life, it's part of our genes to form tribes. The tribe in modern America, though, is based based not on ethnicity or religion or race. It is based on education and social class. Americans in rural areas also cluster, creating their own modern clan. And each lives its life through its own world, seeing reality through its own prism. As a result, we have become two nations, separate, isolated, unequal. In a 2008 book, The Big Sort, impressionably recognized this trend and pointed out that Americans were increasingly choosing to live alongside people with whom they agree on political and social issues. And you can see the results in the election data. In 1976, a quarter of American voters, just a quarter, lived in a county in which the presidential candidate won by a landslide. Today, in 2016, 60% of us live in so-called landslide counties. You see, there are fewer and fewer places where people of differing political views mix. Now here's the result. The authors of the book point out, mixed company moderates, like-minded company polarizes. Heterogeneous communities restrain group excesses, homogeneous communities march toward extremes. Sure enough, the political parties, as measured by congressional voting, are now at levels of polarization that exceed the previous historical high, which was in the aftermath of Reconstruction. So politics in America has become tribal and tethered to a sense of identity. We have a team, we always root for it, we never change our minds, and we wish the other side ill. It's like the Protestants and Catholics in Europe hundreds of years ago, or the Shiites and Sunnis in some Middle Eastern countries today, or it's like football fans in Ohio and Michigan. I'm just kidding, some tribal instincts and loyalty are perfectly healthy and justifiable. You know, technology was supposed to liberate us and make us all individuals, but it's actually reinforced our clannish behavior. According to a Facebook study, politically engaged users have 5 friends with like-minded views for every one who disagrees with them. So in other words, we listen to people only so that we can nod our heads in firm agreement. Now, I can't tell you how to reverse these technological effects or how to revive rural America. These forces that are at play are large, they're structural, they have to do with the digital revolution, globalization. But here's what worries me. These trends are here to stay and they are accelerating. And if unabated, they will tear this country apart. So the question, I think, the urgent question we have to ask is, what can we do to come together? We know the forces that are pulling us apart. What can we do to come together? I think a new litmus test should apply to all public policies. Does it bring us together, or does it pull us apart? Now, what would that mean in practical terms? Let me give you one example. Our K-12 educational system, with good public schools, is the surest, broadest means by which we can all come together, because we can ensure that every American has an equal chance at the American dream. Yet we are one of the few advanced countries in the world, really a handful, that spends less money on poor kids than on rich kids, even though self-evidently poor kids need more help than do rich kids. So that single policy perpetuates and exacerbates the growing divide between rich and poor in America. The public schools must become escalators of social mobility, not walkways that go nowhere. Or consider something simple that could have a monumental impact. National service. Now I know when some of you hear national service, you're groaning and thinking, I have plans to work and travel and study. Relax. Everyone will have to do it. You're not placed at a disadvantage. But just imagine if young Americans from all walks of life, all parts of the country, all social classes and backgrounds, at some point in their 20s, had to do 1 year, just 1 year, of national service. You could join the army, you could teach in a public school, you could work in a poor community, you could clean up the national parks. Anything. But in doing so, you could share with all your fellow citizens this common public service and community. I notice the parents are supporting more than the students. Let me give you another example. Public infrastructure has always been a great unifier. You know, I live in New York, and I see it there, the great parks of New York City. Central Park, Riverside Park, these are magnificent public spaces where billionaires and school teachers run and relax alike. Because the idea equals a common public space that transcends private wealth. Or think of our national parks, which as Ken Burns has described eloquently, are America's best democratic idea. Because again, they are all about equal enjoyment and equal sharing of these spaces. But public policy is really only one aspect of how we can come together. We all need to get out of our echo chambers and talk to each other and respect one another. That's why there are more than 200 organizations now under the auspices of the National Conversation Project that bring groups of Americans together. And they have one cardinal rule: listen first to understand. We must all listen and empathize more. And listening, of course, means fundamentally listening to people with whom you disagree. We need to judge and condemn less, and that's online, in print, or in person. I think we should all ask ourselves, in a sense, what are we doing to bring the country together, to reach out to people who are not like us, who think differently, live differently. And if we can make that part of our kind of life's work, to think of our job as helping to bring the country together as these forces are pulling it apart, it would be enriching and ennobling for the country as a whole. Of course, the advice I'm giving it is a version of the oldest and wisest advice we have. Book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 12. It's in the Sermon on the Mount. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This notion that the golden rule can be found in most religions and ancient sources of wisdom. And it simply asks that you treat others as you would like to be treated yourself. But the notion takes on a modern urgency because in our meritocratic age, the age of meritocracy, we can easily slip into the belief that we deserve our status in life. After all, we tell ourselves, it derives no longer from bloodlines and birth, but from hard work, doing well at school, all those kinds of meritocratic achievements. Fair enough, but a good bit of luck out there along the way. There are people around the country, across the planet, who are smart and hardworking, and who just didn't get that one lucky break, or that mentor to push them along. Perhaps even more important, even if we are skilled at taking tests, and even if we do have the capacity for hard work, that does not make us morally better than someone who is not. Let us never forget that in a profound sense, we are all equal in the eyes of God. And we are certainly citizens, equal citizens in this great republic. So let me close from ancient wisdom to practical advice. Perhaps it's a little more than that. I've said this at other commencements, but I do think it's worth repeating. To the graduating seniors, I am now going to give you a piece of wisdom that comes from experience. It's not something you can learn in a book. It is something you have to have lived through. You will never understand how much your parents love you until you have children of your own. You see, at that point, all their bizarre behavior will seem perfectly normal. The calling, the texting, the fretting, the unsolicited advice, all of it will seem perfectly understandable because you will be doing it all yourself with your kids. But here's the thing, don't wait until then. Don't wait for those years and decades. It can be too late. I sometimes think I waited too long. Find a way, find an occasion, and today is a very good occasion to thank your parents and to tell them that you love them. Trust me, one day you will wish you had done it sooner and more often.
Thank you. Love you.
So ladies and gentlemen, I hope we can now all come together in wishing the class of 2019 of The Ohio State University congratulations and Godspeed.